All right, good afternoon, everyone. We will get started with our session, which is the advanced Zoom session for meeting hosts. And I've got two co-hosts that are going through, and if you want to record, just put it in the chat and they will be giving you the ability to record. And be patient because a lot of you have asked, and it's a process that has to be done manually, one person at a time. There's no bulk record option in Zoom. All right, today we will be covering Zoom. Of course, this is the third in a series of workshops. We did one for beginners, which covered the very basics. We did one that was more intermediate, getting into some of the other features of Zoom. And now we're aiming at this session for people who are hosting meetings, whether it's club meetings or hosting any other kind of Zoom meetings. First thing I'd like you to do is to rename yourself with your name and the city or area you are with. So take a moment and rename yourself. One reason I do this is because this is a test to see if you've got the basic skills to be able to rename yourself in Zoom. Then you'll get a lot out of today and you're probably in the right spot. If you can't rename yourself, then I will be having a session next week on the very basics of Zoom for mute, unmute, rename, and so on. I can see a chunk of you are able to rename. That's good.
Shawn?
Yeah.
Why is it that your Zoom options look much different than my regular meetings with Zoom? We use Zoom in my Toastmasters club, but this looks just different. It's similar, but it is a lot more advanced. And
you might need to update your Zoom, and it could depend on the account, and I'll be touching on the account at least in this. And then I covered upgrading in the earlier two sessions, which will be running a repeat. And different versions of Zoom will display things differently. Many of you will notice in the top right corner, it will say view, or it might say speakers view or gallery view. That is where you can change the view. The newest versions of Zoom have the word view. The older versions would have the word speaker view or gallery view. What we're covering today is a touch on some Zoom etiquette. Then we'll get into the zoom.us settings so that you can know where to go and make some of the settings for your meetings. Then we'll be going through the menu bar in Zoom, paying particular attention to the security settings, to the participants setting and the breakout rooms. And then finally, we'll touch a bit on the desktop setup, how you happen to set up your screens. In this meeting today, I'm running two separate computers. I'm speaking through one. I've got the camera on one, and I'm running my PowerPoint through another. And I have two keyboards in front of me. So if you get a momentary delay, it's because I am switching between keyboards. And we will start with some Zoom etiquette and best practices. What I found really interesting over the 6.5, almost 7 months since COVID, since many of us went into isolation, is the evolution that we've gone through with Zoom and with what's considered, I guess, acceptable, the etiquette and so on. And I'll cover a few of those points here. First is to mute your microphone when others are speaking. That's as a courtesy, and also because any noise can disturb others. Have your camera on unless requested to turn it off. So this is a courtesy to have your video on so others know that you are there and that you are paying attention. If, however, you're having a bandwidth issue or you're in a meeting with a very bad bandwidth issue, then turning off the video can help that. Another is do not drive in Zoom. This is a big no-no. One reason to have your video on so we can see if anybody is driving, and if anyone is and they've got their video on, we would have to remove them for safety reasons. It's like texting and driving or operating heavy machinery and driving. It's very dangerous. So I do emphasize, don't drive in Zoom. It's also considered good etiquette not to be eating while you're in the middle of a Zoom meeting. Drinks are okay, coffee is fine. I've got a coffee and water near me, that's fine, but getting into full meetings is now considered a no-no. Have your camera at eye level. So try to be centered when you're presenting, when you're in a Zoom meeting with a nice, clean background and fairly centered, and don't jiggle. And what I mean by that is sometimes people will have their laptop on their lap, and every time they laugh or move, everything jiggles around and people can get motion sick from that. And so yeah, don't jiggle. And if you're using your phone too, be aware. I spent one meeting looking at somebody's thumb because he had his thumb right by the camera holding his phone the whole time. Yeah, the part about don't drive in Zoom, even listening can be a form of distraction. And some groups, because they consider a liability issue. If somebody happens to be driving, gets in a collision because they happen to be Zooming, is the person on the other end or the group on the other side of the Zoom, does that make them liable? Have a plain, clean background or use a virtual background. Anything in the back can be distracting for people. I've seen a lot of scary stuff in people's backgrounds. And we touch on the virtual backgrounds in the beginner and the intermediate. And speak to the camera, not the screen. I've got the camera here. It's a really good idea when you're presenting to find that camera and then make it a point. If you have to, put a little sticker with a happy face on it so that you're looking at the camera and not the screen. And also be aware of your appearance and your attire, because remember, we can see you and everybody else can see you as well. All right, I am going to show you the couple of the settings here. Give me a moment, I'm switching. When you go to zoom.us, which I've done earlier, now all of you have access to zoom.us. That's the website, www.zoom.us. You would all, if you've upgraded your Zoom, you would all happen to have a Zoom account, whether it's a corporate plan or whether it's a private plan or one you're paying, you would have access to zoom.us. And it's a really good idea to log in there and go take a look at the different settings. So give me a moment to get into that. And I'm not going to go through in great depth on what's in there, just as a rough overview, but it's really helpful to be aware of all of the settings in there. And so if you're wondering, if you're at one meeting and you're wondering, well, gee, how come they're able to do that and I'm not able to do that? Then it could be one of the settings in there. All right, let's go back to my new share window. Okay, we will look at one Zoom account. We'll look at two different Zoom accounts. I just want to indicate a slight difference between the two of them. This is my business account. I run a web design and marketing company. And we're using this account today because of some of the more advanced settings compared to the account that I was using for the district. Now, when we first log in here, we can see on the left side, there's profile, meetings, webinars, recordings. There's also an admin section, and some of the more advanced settings will be within here. Now, I don't have a handout today. One reason is because there are literally thousands of videos on YouTube about how to use Zoom. There's also a huge amount of support that Zoom itself has. If you've got a question of any setting, just go into Google, type in your question, and you will get you'll get an answer. If you're wondering when you first log into an account, if you go to profile, it will tell you what kind of an account you have. This is a basic business account. I'll give you some details on it. And the various settings on the left are used. They can be set up in such a way so that when you set up future meetings, you've got some settings already there. However, you can override everything in the setup and everything. You can also override many things in setting up an individual meeting. Okay, what I wanted to point out with this is that it's got down the left side, you can see there's a whole admin section. Now I'm going to switch to the district one because I would rather show off more Toastmaster clubs and so on. Give me a moment, put that into place. The intermediate session covered doing different setups and so on. And different presentations. All right, here we are. Sharing screen 2. Now, and we always wonder, there we are, resume share. All right, now you are seeing a slightly different admin account. This is the one for the district, and I will run through a bunch of the settings in here as well. Okay, down the left side, when you first log in, down the left side, you can see meetings, webinars, recordings, and so on. We're not touching, I'll get back to meetings in a moment. I'm not covering webinars. The recordings option, very handy if you want to record something for your club. So this is when you've got the account for the club. You click on recordings, you can see the past recordings. Give a moment for it to load, and you can see I discovered yesterday going through this, the session I did 2 weeks ago on intermediate Zoom skills is in here. So I will be able to send off that link to everybody who attended and everybody who's here to go through that one. Now, when you click on a recording, you have the option to delete it, of course, to download the files. You can also do a share option where you click on share. Then you've got various settings that you can configure. You could make it available publicly, or you can set it so only certain people can view it. You can have it expire at a certain amount of time. You can have people download. You can set a password as well, so that people have to log in to view it. Now, this could be handy, especially say in a business setting. In my company, we do it when we do a website design proof. We can record it in Zoom, and then we can password protect it, send the link out to our client who's able to log in and view the video. Or if you've recorded somebody's speech in a club, you may want to make it accessible just to members of the club, so you would password protect it. And then there's all the sharing, you can copy the sharing information, which will give you a list of the links and so on. Okay, that goes into the recordings. And you can go back through cloud recordings, because when you do record, you often have the option between a cloud recording and local recordings. Now, this doesn't access the local recording, but it will tell you who access or where it is stored. And it does say that local recordings are accessible only from the computer on which they were recorded. After this, we'll be able to see which recordings that our recording here has worked. Now, some of the settings on here, these are the general settings. You can set things up here so that when you're setting up future meetings, it's basically using these, although it's often settings can be overridden. And I'll go through a bunch here. This is the waiting room. If you want the waiting room on or off, so that when people come to a meeting, they have to wait like you had today. There's waiting room options too. You can customize the waiting room. And when you customize it, you can put in a logo, you can put in some text. And this way you could, for example, request of the people attending the meeting that they rename themselves. You can customize this, and as waiting rooms become more popular, you can expect to see more customization. You can set up passcodes in here. Since COVID started, Zoom has really had to tighten up their security, as you've probably noticed, because you're most likely aware of Zoom bombing, and if you aren't, then look it up. There are settings for having the waiting room enabled or not. You can block people from certain countries or regions if you're doing a worldwide Zoom. You can set whether the host will have the video on or off. Different types of audio, whether you want participants to join before the host, which means no waiting room. Whether you want participants to be muted when they join a meeting. Then the basic settings for chat. Do you want to prevent people from saving the chat? Yes or no? If you want to change them, you just click, and sometimes Zoom will give you a warning, and sometimes it will just make the change. You can allow private chat in here. There's also settings inside when you're running the meeting, which we'll touch on. But if you're consistently going to set up a meeting and run a meeting the same way, just set your settings in the chat here. This is a very nice one. Sound notification when someone joins or leaves. You can set whether everybody hears that bing or whether it's just the hosts and the co-hosts. I like to set it for hosts and co-hosts so everybody in attendance doesn't have to hear that ding.
Can we restrict the chat only to the Toastmaster only for a Toastmaster club meeting? Can we say the members should communicate only to the Toastmasters?
If to do that, the Toastmaster would have to be a co-host.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. You can set up a file transfer where you can only allow certain types of files. For example, PDFs or Word docs, if that's what your agendas are in, or all types. You can even have the option so that they get the chance to send feedback to Zoom. This is very important too, the option to add co-hosts to a meeting. And then there's also polling feature.
Hi, Shawn.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the co-host feature.
Yeah.
Can you make somebody a permanent co-host so that if you're unable to make the meeting that day, they can sign on and host the meeting?
They would be the host.
They would be the host. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Then you can set up screen sharing. The more I dig into Zoom, the more I discover there is tons and tons of stuff in here. There's whether you want that reaction bar to appear, the meeting reactions, whether you want remove participants to rejoin. If you want to kick somebody out of the meeting, do you want them to be able to come back to the meeting? That's a setting you can turn on or off. Whether you want participants to rename themselves, which is very useful for Toastmasters and for most meetings. But I have been to meetings where I was not able to rename myself, and I thought it was absolutely insane. There are breakout rooms. Now I'll point out two very important things with breakout room and remote support. Many of you are familiar with breakout rooms, and we'll be getting into breakout rooms today, where you can go into other rooms within Zoom. There's also the feature of remote support, and I'll be touching on remote support today as well. Remote support allows you as the host to access the other person's computer to go in to do something, to run a program, maybe to set a setting on their computer. Both very useful features. You cannot have both breakout rooms and remote support on at the same time. It's either or. In my company, we've got the main corporate account where we use breakout rooms. So we have that set. For my own personal Zoom, because I do a lot of remote support, I've got remote support on so that I can go and assist people and not put them in breakout rooms. There's even closed captioning, and you'll see some closed captioning later today. There's even a spot to allow virtual backgrounds. You can add some backgrounds by default, so you can turn off the ability for people to add virtual backgrounds.
Shawn, can we
Yep.
revisit the remote support? So if I understand you correctly, if we choose breakout rooms, then we have to disable the remote support.
It's not you have, it's a choice, either one, when you set it up.
But we
'Cause if
can't
I
have
was-
both.
Yeah, that's right. You
Why
can
is
only
that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Probably because of what's in the back. There is a way to get around that, which I will, the remote support, which I will touch on today.
Okay, thanks.
My best suggestion for you is to log into zoom.us and just look through all of these settings. Sometimes there's an indication, you see a little V, which will tell you what version it will work on. If you've got a question, just highlight the text, copy the text, and paste that into Google or into Zoom support to get more of an explanation of what those settings are for. And I could say any questions on this, when really my best advice is just go in and see what's there. Now, another really handy feature in here is reports. And reports are used after a meeting. You can see, for example, they've got the usage report, where you can see the past meetings. There's a couple of meetings in here. You can select by date. So we're going for the two most recent ones. Let's go a little bit further back. You can select by date, click search. And this will tell you various things: when the meeting started, what user started the account. This is all a District 21 account. And it will also show you, that's what I'm looking for. If you scroll all the way to the right, it will show you how many people were in the meeting and who they were. So let's take a look at one of the ones here. We get a list of the meeting participants. So if you're taking attendance, say for a Toastmasters meeting, you're trying to remember, oh, was so-and-so there? You can log in and go look at the reports. You can also see how long they were there too. This could be great for training. Did somebody log in for 5 minutes and say, hey, I did an hour of club officer training? Well, you can go in and check. Now this will track every time somebody logs in, and you notice there were about 176 or so logins because some people only logged in for a minute. They had some technical issue, they logged out, they logged back in again. So you can see everybody that came to the meeting, how long they stayed.
Shawn, I have a question.
Yeah.
So let's say we have a 8:45 to 1 p.m. training, and we have a break in between, right? A 20-minute break. So when the participant comes back in, does it show that they were there for the first session, which was from 8:45 to 12, and then it shows that? Because
yep, it would. They would log out and then they would log back in. Yes. Now at one usage reports, you can also export any of these as a CSV file. If you're familiar with Excel, you'll love that ability. There's meeting reports. And in a meeting report, you can, if you're running a poll, you can go in and see who filled out the polls. I'll be touching on polls later today, so I won't go into detail in this report. But this, when you post a poll, this is where you can access the results.
Shawn, I have
Yeah.
a quick question. We do a lot of meetings at work, and we oftentimes have to take minutes. Is there a way that you can, that Zoom can transcribe the information shared in a meeting into text?
Not yet.
Not
It might
yet.
be in some early stages. There are a couple of companies, though, that will transcribe.
Okay.
For so many, from anywhere from 25 to $1.25.
Zoom does have that feature, but it's in another package. It's a commercial package.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do that.
Okay. All
Good.
right.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll go back to touch on meetings themselves. Now you can see when you get into meetings, you've got the attend live training. So if you want to learn more about Zoom, they're free. They're usually about an hour long, and you can learn quite a lot there. You have upcoming meetings. These are all the future ones. You can schedule a meeting. So to schedule a meeting, you click on schedule, because some of you as hosts, these are already set up and you basically just start the meeting. So to set it, you would give it a title. You give it a title, you can enter a description there. You can select a template. If you've got the same type of meeting, or if you're having 2 or 3 of the same meetings over and over and over, you can set up a template so that you just have to access, and all of the settings are there, including your poll questions, which can make it very efficient for setting up new meetings. You select the date, the time, the duration. The duration is not strict, so certainly set the time, but as you're probably aware, people can log in before and meetings can go over. Set the time zone. You can indicate if it's a recurring meeting. This is the district account, so we've got some clubs that are using it where we've set a certain number of meetings and how often they will meet. It's basically like a regular calendar setup. You can also set whether registration will be required or not. For this meeting, we required people to register. Now, if you're wondering, why do we want people to register? One is that if we're running polls, if they register, then we can see their results. It really helps with the poll data if people have registered.
Shawn, can I ask a question now or should I wait?
You can try, sure.
Okay, for recurring meeting, once that's set up, would it be the same link and the same password?
Yes, it would.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, which can make it very convenient. You can also, this is where, for security, you can set a passcode. and a waiting room. Zoom recommends both, especially the passcode. You can change the passcode. Zoom has some criteria there where they want it to have at least 6 characters and at least 1 letter. So you can change that to something so that it's easy to remember rather than remember 25876 each week. Maybe you want to give it a nice, either a combo or a name or something that people will find it easier to remember. You can also set whether the host and participant will have their cameras on or off. The audio setting, you can set where people dial from. Now this has been set to dial from Canada. You can edit it if you're having an international meeting, for example. You can go and move over Australia so that when you send out that invitation, it's got the Canada phone numbers and the Australian phone numbers. And there are just about every country there. Then when you're done, you're able to save the meeting. I won't save this one. I want to go back into the existing meetings and take a look at some of those settings so I can show those to you. I'm going to go into a previous just to give you an indication of some of the setups that can be done.
Shawn?
Yep.
If we had saved that meeting, would that then become a template?
No.
No, okay.
No,
That's
you're
somewhere
able
else.
to set it as a template though. That is a feature in there. Here, let me go into an existing meeting. This is one we had on the 10th. Now, when you're in a meeting, on the right, you can always start it, or you can edit, or you can delete a meeting. You can edit or you can click. So I'm going into this one and it will pull it up, allow you to add it to your calendar, give you the meeting ID. This is where you can copy the registration link from to send out to your attendees. You can copy the invitation from here, which sends them to the registration page. This is also where you set up the registration. You can also view the registration if people have already registered.
Shawn, could you just go up a little bit?
Yeah.
Can you import the registrants from a different source and put them in there?
I don't know.
Hmm?
I don't know. I have not seen an option for that. I've seen it for breakout rooms, but not for registrations. But again, that might be the plan that they're on. Right, here's where you can save the meeting as a template. Oh, registration. You can set email settings. You can set so that when somebody registers, you get a notification that somebody is registered by inputting your email address. Give it a name so people know who the email is from, and you can set your own email address in there. You can send a preview email to you. You can do branding. If you click on branding, you can upload, and I've already put the Toastmasters banner in there. You click change or add, you can go in and upload the logo and the banner and put a description. This is also where you set up polling. When you click on poll and you want to add a question, you click add and you can enter a title for the poll. So we're going to call it say advanced poll. You can determine whether the results will be anonymous or not. And then you put in a question. But in your question, you can determine if your answers, if it will be single or multiple choice. So a single could be a simple yes, no. Or you can have a multiple choice where they select more than one response.
Do you know if Zoom allows you to set up your poll questions in advance in Word or PowerPoint and then upload it?
No,
No. Okay.
no, this is a very manual process to set this up, to set up the polling. And a bit later on, when I touch on polling, when we get into Zoom itself, I'll be running you through a poll.
Shawn?
Yeah.
Linda here. Can you set up 2 polls for one meeting?
Yes. Yes, you can set up many polls for one meeting. I have set up 2 polls for this meeting, one for the middle and one for the ending.
How do you
Like
do
I
that?
did here where I
How do you
had.
do that?
Hmm?
How do you do that?
Okay, well, if you go to, when you go to add, you give a title for the poll. You can also add a poll. You can give it a title. You put in your questions. Here, let me go to show you the ones that I did.
Oh, so I see on that back screen, it says add. So you can click that add button and
Yeah.
just add another poll.
That's right. So you put in your question here.
You could pre-set up the poll in such a way that you have a text document and then you cut and paste it in there, I believe, right? Isn't that right, Shawn?
You could do that, yeah. You could have your notes on the side, which I tend to do. I've got a few questions, and when I draft up a presentation, I draft out my questions and then I just copy and paste them in. But I do set up the poll in advance. You cannot set up the poll during the meeting. And you're able to add a question to the poll too, so you can keep adding questions to have a longer poll. When we get inside Zoom itself, you'll see a bit more of the poll set up, but this is where you would be setting it up. There's also the option to set up live streaming here. There's other settings in there. We've set up to go to YouTube or Facebook, and I'll show you that when we're inside the meeting where we actually turn this on. Then you've got the option to actually start your meeting right in here. So you could log into zoom.us before your meeting, check some of the settings, set up your poll, and then click to start the meeting when all of your members are going to be arriving. And we'll be touching on polls when we get inside. Yes, Marilyn.
What type of account do you have? Because we have the pro account, but I don't have half those settings.
It's possible. My suggestion is to log into zoom.us and go through the settings itself to see what you can turn on and off. However,
yeah, I'm logged in right now because I have 2 screens, so I can do that. And I don't have reports. And like when you were in the meeting settings there, like I've got details and poll, but I don't have like the registration and things like that, unless there's someplace I have to turn that on first.
It might be under the account profile or the settings itself on the left side that might have you set it up.
Okay.
However, I did discover, those of you who were in last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago, I was covering the intermediate level of Zoom, and I was trying to show my Zoom, one of my Zoom window settings, and I couldn't do it. Because the day before, in all of my tests, I had used my own corporate account and I could do everything. And then I was doing this presentation here and I couldn't bring it up. And that's when I ran into that technical glitch and ran through the different options. And then I discovered afterward what the issue was. I had done my practice in my corporate account. And then I was using the district account, which even though it's an enterprise account, not all of those settings are enabled. And I'm not able to enable those settings.
Yeah. Shawn,
yeah.
I got a personal account and I had a business account, and the settings are so different.
Yeah.
The settings for the personal one is so limited, and the business, you can do so much things in there.
Yeah. And then there's also higher levels and different levels as well. So even though the district account is an enterprise account, it's a low-level enterprise account, and we can't change everything. But what this tells us, you know, as Toastmasters, when you're doing a speech or when you're doing a presentation somewhere, it's great to test out the equipment, go test the stage. Well, my advice is to test the actual Zoom account that you will be using for your full presentation too. Especially if you're using any of the more advanced features like I was, or you're doing any screen sharing, it'd be good to be able to access the account itself just to see what the capabilities are right there.
Shawn?
Yeah, Dave.
In the case where you're, like I have the pro version, but if I was doing a presentation and I'm on another computer or somebody else and I don't have the pro version, would I see some of those features that I'm using? For example, you know, I use a virtual background for a slideshow, and other people comment they can't see me moving around on that particular slideshow.
It's a good question. I would suspect that they should be able to see everything. Maybe it might depend if they haven't upgraded their Zoom for a while. That's the only thing I could think of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Shawn, if you look in plans and pricing and go down there and take a look at everything down there, it tells you what the different plans will give you.
Yeah.
And so that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, that is. All right. So
Shawn,
I have.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This is Tracy. Can you talk about the alternative host, how to set that? I tried to do it, but it wasn't successful. Like there's an option where you create a new meeting. You can assign an alternative host. How to do that?
That I'm not very familiar with. I did go through a Zoom session with it, and when there's a corporate account, that's when those settings from what I understand, seem to work the best. So we've got the main Radar Hill account. If we've got 5 paid accounts, then we can set up the alternate hosts that way. It doesn't work with a free account because I use the free account, and I've tried going into my corporate account, setting my free account as an alternate host, and I can't do it.
I have a licensed account, and then I want to assign one member to be the host when I'm not there. Putting in their email address, it says they're not Zoom users. I don't know why.
Yeah, they have to have a paid account, but also they have to have a paid account that's somehow connected with your account.
Okay.
And I don't know the specifics on that, how to set that up.
I think in the basic account, because you only allowed one host, you can't give an alternate host per se. The only way you can do that is give them the password to get in as the host.
Thank you.
And one other spot I'm going to touch on too within meetings here is to show you, go back in to touch on breakout rooms. Previous, let's go back to the 10th. Edit this meeting. Now there can be so many settings for Zoom. It might be a thought if you find a setting you really like, write down how you got there because it can take some poking around to find it. Like I am looking for one now. Breakout room, right. You've got an option when you set up breakout rooms where you can pre-assign people Or you can even import. You could set up your breakout rooms. We'll be touching on breakout rooms when we get a little bit later, but you can create your breakout rooms early. You can also import. If people have registered in advance, so for example, for club officer training, they register in advance. The night before, we can take that whole list. We know what breakout rooms they should be going into. We can turn that list into a CSV, import it, and then it will assign them so that when we're inside the meeting, it will automatically move them into the meeting.
Do you have to
I
have
read
people
somewhere
register?
Go ahead,
Catherine.
Sorry, I just was wondering, do you have to have people register through Zoom in order to pre-assign the breakout rooms? Because I've used breakout rooms, but I had to wait for everyone to join the call before I could assign them. So the idea of pre-assigning them sounds like a great thing to me, but I'm just wondering if they have to register or whether you could create an open Zoom link that anyone could potentially join, but you might have a list of people that you know to expect.
It can be both ways. From the people who've used that import from CSV heavily, they've said that it can be a bit buggy and we can run into issues. And I've seen a case where as it was assigning, people were pre-assigned, Zoom was just getting slower and slower going through the list.
Okay.
In your way, where you just have people show up and move them, that takes time also, but it can be easier during the meeting. And then you know exactly who is there. So either one is not quite as smooth a process as it could be.
Shawn, can we revisit the importing the Excel list for the breakout rooms? So if we have an Excel list of 50 participants and we are going to have 3 breakout rooms and they are 20, 20, and 10. So does that mean that once we import, the system itself in Zoom will assign the first 10 and first 20 and it'll know, okay, this is maxed out, and then set up the next and the next?
No, when you're importing the list, you can specify where they go.
Okay, all right, perfect, thank you.
I read there's an option now where the people can choose which breakout room they want to go in. So if you're one treasurer training, you can move yourself into that.
We'll be touching on that in a moment.
Okay.
All right, so now I am going to go back to share. Let's go back to our meeting itself, or go back to my slides. Resume share. Screen number 2. So much fun stuff in Zoom. All right, now you're all looking at which is pretty much a black screen, but further down you can see a navigation bar. I've got to get to my screen there. All right, so you're all able to see that. That is pretty much what most of you are seeing at the bottom of your screen now. As a host, though, we see quite a bit. We see quite a bit more. Just have to move my window around a little bit. Not there. All right. As a host, we see this, many more icons, and I'll be going through these, or some combination. Basically, the host sees much more than the participants see. Now, I'll go through this. I won't touch on the mute or the stop video. We'll start with the security icon. Clicking on that one, for the host, that lets us do a bunch of settings. Now, I mentioned when I was logged into zoom.us that you can set a lot of settings. Here is where you can override them or you can change them partway through the meeting. You, for example, can, with the security settings, the host and the co-host, because you can assign co-hosts, and we'll touch on assigning co-hosts. They can lock the meeting or they can enable a waiting room. Locking the meeting means people cannot get into that meeting. Enabling the waiting room means they go there and then they have to be admitted in. You could be running this during a speech contest or a speech itself, where everybody's free to come in, and I tend to turn off the waiting room and I've got everything unlocked. When people are arriving, they're just coming into the meeting. And then once the meeting starts, I will enable waiting room. Once we get to the speeches, such as in a contest, I will lock the meeting room so that they haven't made it and they're not coming in. This is also where you can set what participants can do. Do you want to allow them to share the screen? Now, some people say you can only share a screen when you're a co-host. No, that's not true. You can give other people the ability to share the screen. You can give everybody the ability to share the screen. In a group this size, I wouldn't, because if you all started sharing the screens, something might break. You can turn the chat on and off here. You can give people the ability to rename themselves and to unmute themselves. So this is handy, say, during a speech contest, where you can turn off or you can take away the ability for people to unmute themselves during a speech contest, so there's no chance of anybody unmuting themselves.
Shawn,
yeah,
I have a question. It's Linda.
Yeah.
So on that share screen thing, I'm thinking of a specific situation of the timer. So the timer, in my understanding, could show the timing lights by changing the background. That's one way. But they could also show the timing lights by sharing a screen too, right?
Yep, they could.
Okay, so if the timer shared the screen, and would we click it on there? Like I'd want the timer to share his screen, but not allow the participants to share their screens. Or is it like one or none? Like, is it all or none?
In that case, I would have this off and I would make the timer a co-host.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good one. Thank you.
I am thinking I'm using PowerPoint for this presentation. There are at least half a dozen other different presentation software that I've been exposed to that does really neat stuff. And I'm investigating some of those, and I'm thinking it would be nice to have a workshop like this where people who are well skilled in something other than PowerPoint could come and share their knowledge, because I think some of that would work better for timing than what we've got so far. This is the security button. Any questions on that so far? All right. Touching on locking the meeting and enabling the waiting room. When the waiting room is enabled, then the host and the co-host, when people get there, they see this message that says somebody wants in, and then they can click to admit them, or they can click to, and then they would see who's inside, and then they can either admit or remove them. Now, this is put in as a security feature. If you've got a club meeting and there's people there that you don't recognize, or you're running a private meeting and there's people there that you don't recognize, you can just remove them. They might be Zoom bombers. Next up is the participants button. Now, when you click, and you can do it on your own computers, when you click on participants, you see a list of everybody in this meeting. So go do that on your own. Click on participants, window will pop up. And if you pick somebody and you click on their icon, there's not a whole heck of a lot that you can do as a regular attendee. However, the host can do so much more. Along with the chat, the host has the ability to stop the video, which means turn off their screen. This is helpful for Zoom bombing. If somebody's doing anything inappropriate, then that can be turned off. The spotlight for everyone. Now, spotlight for everyone is when that's clicked. Now you notice if you're on speaker view, when I'm speaking, you see my face. When somebody asks a question, you see them, the camera or your view goes to them on speaker view. With spotlight, you can pick one person and make that person the spotlight. So let's try one as an example here. Okay. All right, Jennifer. Hi, I've put
Hi.
spotlight on Jennifer. So no matter what I say, and if any of you unmute yourself, Jennifer's is there on spotlight.
Yes.
Now this could be handy. It could be for timing. It could be for a presentation. I used this yesterday in a meeting. I found it incredibly helpful. There was one participant who had to speak. She had sound issues with her camera, or with her computer rather. So she phoned in. And all we saw on the screen was the phone icon, and she was talking away. And I realized, oh, I can spotlight. So I put it on spotlight. We could see her face, we could hear her sound. It was ideal. When she was done her presentation, we removed the spotlight. Oh, as host, that can be very handy for spotlighting somebody. That can also work in some clubs where you like to have everybody to be open mic so that you can hear a response from them. Then for the speaker, just spotlight the speaker. And that way people can still be making noise, but the camera, the main view, will stay on that one speaker. Just remember to turn it off when you're done. So that's very handy there. And right now you're probably seeing me and not Jennifer. Thanks, Jennifer. Other options at spotlight, you can make somebody a host. You can make somebody a co-host. I can designate, and I've got a few people here designated as hosts or co-hosts. Here, Jan, I'll pick on you for a moment. I'm going to make you co-host as well. So when I make Jan a co-host, a screen pops up asking me if I want to make Jan a co-host. And I can say yes or no. I've clicked yes. So now she's a co-host, and her menu bar has changed.
Shawn, may I interject?
Yeah.
So let's say we are having the club officer training on November the 21st, and suddenly something happens, the co-host can't make it. Everything is on. We can immediately go and make somebody a co-host?
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
There is only one host of a Zoom meeting, and that host has a few, basically looks after the breakout room, and I think that's about it. And the polling are the only two settings, mainly the breakout rooms that the host can do, but you can make other people co-hosts. Though today I had two people, I had one person, Elizabeth, who was co-host to admit people in, and then her and David were co-hosts so that they could go through and give people the ability to record. So at the club officer training, when we can have hundreds of people, we will set up co-hosts to do certain tasks. One may just be admitting people. One might be looking after renaming people. One or two might be trolling through to make sure that people are muted. And you can assign different co-hosts. All the co-hosts are equal, but you can brief one and give a certain task to a certain co-host.
We've also experienced where we have several members that have the login credentials for our club site. And what happens is that whoever signs in first and launches the meeting becomes the host. And then if other people join using those credentials, they become co-hosts.
Yes.
So just something to be aware of when you have multiple people having access to the account credentials.
Yep, that's true. And Zoom will also, somebody has, once let me back up. When somebody is a host, if that person disconnects, gets a bad connection, Zoom will assign a host to somebody else. I was on a workshop in the UK and the presenter had a bad internet connection. He got disconnected. I ended up as meeting host.
Shawn,
Yeah.
can we look at this comment from Raymond Ho? The spotlight speak. Okay, so you have made Jen Ireland the spotlight, and then she's presenting and presenting, but we cannot pin the timer. So how do we go about that?
That's right. If you are speaking and you decide to pin the timer so that you can see the timer, and the rest of the club of course can't, because we covered how to pin people. You've got the timer pinned, but then I'm host and I make you the spotlight speaker. That breaks your pin. And you're muted, Jennifer.
So, Shawn.
Yep.
What would be the best and easiest solution for the whole audience to see the timer up in the corner and see the speaker view?
There is a newer feature I'm not too familiar with that's allowing for multiple pins. And I don't know enough about that yet because we only discovered it last Saturday at some officer training.
So are you saying at this moment that you can't do that?
No, I'm saying at this moment, I think we can, and I have to play with it some more.
Okay, Shawn, can we deliberate on this a bit?
Yeah.
So we are having the club officer training. I'm a speaker. You now set me on spotlight, but we cannot pin the timer. Then can you then pin the? No, it doesn't work for the speaker because the speaker can't see it.
Right.
Yeah, how about Shawn? How about we use two computers? For one is a drop computer. Actually, no people there. Like I have two devices. Can I use that one? So you can pin that one as a timer, as a co-host. And then the timer will be shown on the screen in that way.
Yep. You could even do it you could even do it on the phone. You could have a contest or where the participants, the contestants are on their main computer and they have the phone with a separate Zoom meeting where the timer is.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Wait, I got an idea, Shawn.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say the COT is carrying on. You made a spotlight. They can use the background. Remember, we have the background thing?
Yeah.
So the co-host can always use the background as an indicator.
Yep.
But there's another feature now where you can actually plan where everybody's going to be and then not give them the ability to move around. So everybody's looking at the same screen.
Yeah. Yeah, we discovered that last week as one of the newer things.
Yeah, tile.
Which I won't be touching on here. So some of the other, that's the feature here, if you notice, allow to multi-pin. Now, next time you're in a club meeting, if you're a host or co-host, grant that ability to multi-pin and then just go in and see how you can move people around and move the panels around. This also is where you can rename people. You could have somebody who's a co-host whose job it is to rename people, and you can put people in a waiting room, which I won't do it here, but if you've got somebody who is disruptive or asking too many questions or not being or drunk or whatever, you can actually move them into a waiting room. And I won't do it to somebody because you'll disappear. So put them in
Shawn,
yeah.
It's Gia. Another thing is that I find that my screen can separate two parts. One part I can see you, another part at the same time I can see your agenda. So my screen is, did you understand me?
Yes, yes.
Two parts. So right now I see two pictures. One is you, one is the agenda. And I think in that way, maybe we can use it as a timer at the same time as the speaker.
Jay, I didn't understand that. Can we try that again? I want to know.
I'm going to touch just right at the end on my setup, which is very similar to Gia's with two computers.
But can you do a split screen on one computer? So you can have the speaker and the timer in a split screen?
Maybe with that multi-pin, which is a new setting. So I don't have a firm answer on that.
Okay.
And one other, you can remove somebody and you can also report somebody. So if you've got a Zoom bomber, you can report them to Zoom. Okay, that's those settings there, which are quite handy. Next up, right, you can also, wanted to mention, you can make somebody a co-host and you can also make somebody a host. So if I'm the host, I can make somebody else the host and I am no longer the host. So if I have to leave a meeting, I could make somebody a host and then leave. However, I've also got the option to reclaim host. So the one main host, the first host basically can assign host to other duty, to other people, or to one other person, and then reclaim the host. So that's something you can play with in your club. Polls, that is something that the host can launch. Two, we can set up a poll in zoom.us and then we can launch it here. And I am going to launch my poll. So you have seen something pop up on your screen asking you a question, and just go in and answer. This could be very handy for getting input from members or to vote on something. We could be using this for the business meeting. For the district, if everybody registers in advance, we set up the polling questions.
I already have a question about polls.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, so if you set your poll up in advance, if you break out into breakout rooms, how would the poll work in the breakout rooms, or it wouldn't work?
I don't know. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it has that capability. I'm thinking it probably doesn't, because I'm thinking it probably, you need to have everyone in the main room in order to launch it.
It could be, but anything we do say here, Zoom is also always changing.
Right.
And always trying to improve too. So as host, I ran that poll and then I can show the results as well. And then I can stop the share and close it. Now, if you're a co-host, you don't have the option of answering the poll questions. So polling is another handy feature.
Shawn, I have a question. So you've been telling us to go to zoom.us to set it all up. They give us the capability of having the app. So can we do all this in the app?
Not quite.
Okay, thanks.
In 2 weeks, we're planning a workshop about the app. Okay, so we've launched a poll. Right, so you get a choice. You set up your polls, and then as host, you can select the polls that you want to run. Next, I'll touch on the chat. Now, the chat for you lets you, in this case, chat with other people within the meeting. The meeting host can chat with everybody, can chat with somebody, people in the, or not, can message people in the waiting room. It's not actually chat because the people in the waiting room can't respond. And also in that, the dots, if you open your chat and click on those dots, you've got a small menu of what you can do. For the meeting host, there's quite a bit more settings. They can save chat like you have. They can also set who people can chat with, whether that's with no one, whether it's only the host, whether it's everybody publicly or everybody publicly and privately. There's no best practices. It's all up to how you want to run things. It might be that if you find chat distracting in a meeting, you want to turn it off for everybody. It might be that during a presentation, you want to turn off the ability for people to chat or to chat privately. I was at marketing conference last week, or I attended it online, and one of the speakers was saying there that, and he's a professional, he teaches people how to present, and he said he really didn't like chat. He thought it was distracting and people weren't following it along. So he really tracked, and he noticed that when people had free access to chat privately, publicly, and so on, even if they weren't talking about the speakers, 80% of the time they became customers. 80% of the time they bought. So it seems when people are chatting, they're still staying engaged in the presentation compared to the people who aren't. And he became a convert. And when I heard that, I was pretty amazed too. And I realized, yeah, that's the advantage of having chat.
I compare the, I went to the District 91 conference last in May, and they allowed the chat between everybody, and you know there was over 500 in one room at one time.
Yep.
And you could chat privately with other people you knew were there.
Yep.
And then I went to another room where that was not allowed, and I found that frustrating because you're just sitting there as if you're in a seminar and you can't even ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, there's no best practice. It's how people want to set it up. Next up is sharing the screen. And those settings are set by the host. So the host can determine who shares, whether it's only the host or all the participants. And there's another neat, handy feature. And I got to thank Heather Mulcaster for helping me do this. We were trying that feature of having her share the screen, and there's a feature there. So I gave her the ability to share the screen. And there's the option request remote control. While she was sharing the screen, I was able to click on request remote control. And then a window popped up that told me that I am about to request control of her screen. And I clicked to request. And she got a message that said I was trying to control her screen. And she was able to approve that. And that allowed me to go in and look at some of her computer settings. So this could be very handy for support. I did this after the beginning session for some people, where I was able to talk them through sharing the screen. And then I was able to go through and do some of their upgrading for Zoom. So that could be very handy to provide support to members. Maybe you've got somebody who's trying to do a PowerPoint presentation, but just doesn't quite know, is able to share a screen, but hasn't figured out how to do the setup. Then you as host could go in, access, and set up their screen that way.
Hi, Shawn.
Yep.
Hi, this is Celine here. When we go to chat, we have document, we have box and all that. Can we share from there? Can we go to and we also have our computer there. So can we go to our computer, take the document from there and share with the
Yes.
audience?
Yeah, you can upload a document in
From
chat.
there and share
Yeah.
share.
Yeah,
Okay.
that can also be turned off and on in zoom.us as well.
Okay.
Shawn,
Thank
Yeah.
you.
so you were discussing about how this host can do it. So let's say the club officer training is going on. Can the co-host do it? Because the host is doing the other bit. The co-host is handling breakout rooms and whatever.
I don't know.
And
Haven't
okay,
tried that.
that's-
Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know for
You
21st.
can assign the host, the original host can assign somebody as being the host. And I like to call him the Zoom master. And the host, the original host always has the right to be able to call back and control the meeting.
Yeah.
So that's a nice feature to be able to do that.
Yes. And so at any time as well, I can give up remote control, or the person whose screen I have accessed can also turn it off.
Hey, Shawn, can you,
Okay, next, you know, the
there's-
pause
can
and
you-
this recording, that's common for people. Yes, Shawn?
Can two people share at the same time?
Doesn't seem so.
I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to get the word of the day up on somebody's screen, on a second screen or some other screen, and then not, and somebody else could still give a PowerPoint presentation as part of their speech.
I don't know. That multi-pin might do it. We might, or a second camera might do it. Don't know.
So that can be, I think that 2 computers can make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, second computer, yeah, you just have it
Yeah,
as
I
a,
have 2 computers right now, so I just want to try if I can pin the timer, if I'm a timer, for example. So I will try. Can you send me as a co-host, Shawn? Yeah, just put my co-host. Okay, thank you.
You can always use the
Try
CC
some function here myself. Okay.
Okay, Gia, your co-host.
Okay, thank you.
If you put the word of the day in a virtual background, it will show throughout the meeting.
And the other thing is use the CC method, the closed caption method. You type messages in there and then will show up on the bottom or the top of the screen. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that one, Brian?
I'm touching that in a few minutes.
And the CC method.
That's next, Brian. You're stepping ahead there. Okay, Gia, any luck on that? Another option, Shawn, is to go for a second camera. But
Gia, we can't hear
still...
you, Gia. We can't hear you, Gia.
Yeah, but the second, you're only allowed to have one camera going at once, right? You can't have 2
That's
cameras
right.
in the same computer.
Yeah,
right.
Because another computer, actually, I use that the timer thing.
Yeah.
So can you make me co-host in another computer right now? Thank
Are you the same on? I got to find you in the other one. Okay, I've got
Did you
there.
see the my one is the
yes,
timer
I
thing
do now.
Yeah, another one with Lally. There's no Lally one.
Yeah.
Okay, I will try.
You're,
okay.
Your co-host on 2, so.
Okay, let's
go ahead.
Thank you. You can continue. When I try, I will tell you results.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I will need to share the screen, which might affect what you're doing. But we'll see. Okay, I will continue.
Okay. Shawn, would that mean that Gia has to register twice so that she shows up in your...
No. In my case,
what I've done for some of my clubs is we have the, we share a paid Zoom account, but then I set up, little 40-minute ones. And then I use that screen to display like what I'm displaying behind me in this case, but you can use, put the banner up there, whatever, so that people know they come in and they know which club is holding the meeting.
I'm just going to point out it's almost the bottom of the hour. So those of you who have to go, feel free to go. We'll continue to record this, and then I'll be sending out the recording of this to everybody who logged in today. So if you have to go, I understand.
Hey, Shawn.
Yeah.
I just let you know, actually, I can see, oh, sorry. I can see 2 screens on my end. One is with your agenda, another one is my timer, the Jiedong with the Lanli one. So I can pin 2 together in one computer with one screen. Did you get it?
Yeah, I can see your.
So I can screenshot and I will send to you later. So we can set up as that for our guideline for our COT training in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just send to you later.
All right.
Yeah, I want to know how to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Ditto. Yeah. Well, we will. Okay, I'm going to continue.
Shawn, just a moment here before you go anywhere. Are you going to talk about hybrid meetings here?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because if anyone wants to do a hybrid meeting, give me a call. We've done some very successful ones. You've got to have the right setup. So, but unfortunately, I have to run. So,
Okay.
all right. Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
co-hosting.
Shawn, can I make a quick couple points?
Yeah.
And I've gone to a lot of Zoom meetings, and these are the two common problems I see. Number one, we can't see the people. Remember, everybody's looking at a 3-inch by 1-inch screen somewhere on a big page. That's really small. You've got to make your face well seen. You put a lamp in front of you, not behind you, because if you put it behind you, you'll have a dark face.
Yep.
And you need to choose a screen like I have that's pretty well devoid of a whole bunch of activities. May have one thing on it, but my contrast between my picture and what the rest of the screen is really easy to see. So, and this is really important when you go to a virtual hybrid meeting, because there are people on a small screen and there's people on a big screen.
Yep. I've covered much more about backgrounds and lighting in the other sessions.
Oh, I know I have, but we're on the second session and people still aren't doing it. And so I want to make a point. The second thing is gestures are really hard in Zoom. So please check how your hands are going, because you can see it. Thanks very much, Shawn.
Yeah. All right. So you're familiar with the pause, stop recording, and so on. No change there for the host, other than the ability to give people the ability to record. Next up is closed captions. Now that closed caption gives, I haven't seen this in use here, but it lets people type. So I am going to try this. This is closed caption. Can anybody see that?
Yeah, it's popping up on the screen.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. Now the host could do that, or the host can assign somebody to do that.
That didn't show
There.
up on my screen.
No, okay, here, Marilyn.
You didn't show up on my screen also. I was searching.
Okay.
Not mine.
All
It's
right.
in your menu bar. Showed up on mine.
Where?
Where?
I'll do it again.
Bottom
Across
left.
the bottom. Shawn, I'm wondering whether this closed caption capability is for the participants, so that if we have someone who has hearing disability, they can automatically go in.
Somebody could. Yeah.
Yeah, but somebody has to type that in, whatever's being said. It's
As a participant, there's a closed captioning button on my screen, and I had to click it and say enable it.
Oh, perfect.
Or it says view subtitle, hide subtitle, and there's a couple other options there, but
Excellent.
view full transcript and subtitle settings. So I think the individual user has to make those settings to be
So
able to see it.
Brian Dot, so it doesn't go and do a voice to text by itself?
yeah, you can send messages that way to every, because it goes to everybody, I believe.
I think so, but yes, they do have to enable that. So who wants?
I see what you're saying.
Who wants to test this out? Diane, are you there?
Yeah, I've only ever looked at it from the point of view I was, I had a paid account.
Yeah.
But not from this side.
Marilyn.
Yes, I enabled it now, so I should be able to post
Okay.
this.
Now, so Marilyn, I just clicked to enable you to do that. Did something change in your screen? Oh, you're muted.
apparently I can't use spacebar to temporarily unmute myself when I'm on the screen to type.
Yep.
It's working.
Yeah.
This is Jen. I enabled it and I can see it now.
Yep, I
can see it as well.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So that's how closed captioning works. Now you could do it to have, for accessibility, have somebody type in the meeting. You could probably also do it if you were running a bilingual meeting and you had a translator or an interpreter. That is that feature there. So Marilyn, I'll keep you with that ability if you want to type or not. And I'm going to continue with my presentation here. So it could be handy for a conference as well. And also in there, you notice the copy the API token. This is allowing some other third parties, and I'm really not familiar with that. Next up, there is the, not next, but jumping ahead, there is the More button on the far right, which allows for streaming. Live on Facebook, live on YouTube. There's a couple of others. We use this in the District 21 contest where we stream to Facebook. This has to be enabled by the host. And we'll probably use this in the district conference as well, where we will stream to YouTube. And we're going to play with this a little bit to see what we can do to set it up nice and smoothly. Now, the advantage of this, for one, is that if this account, like if the district account has a limit of 500 people and more than 500 people show up, if you can stream it, then people can see it on YouTube. Another advantage, so that way you could just have the keynote there streaming. Another advantage, because it's streaming, people can access it later. They don't have to be right at the meeting. A third advantage is that if you're running training or doing a presentation, you could just have the people who potentially you need to interact with who are at the actual meeting. Everybody else could be streaming. This is what we're looking at doing for the district conference, where the keynotes and so on, we've just got a few number of presenters. They will be in the actual meeting. The meeting will be locked. Everybody else will be viewing on YouTube or Facebook. So we're looking at, we're going to be running some tests so we can set something like that up.
District 91, somehow they ran a Zoom meeting within a Zoom meeting. And they separated the people that were actually, running it. And then everybody else was in another part of it. I don't know how they did that, but I know the people who did it.
There's also the webinar feature as well, which is similar to that. Okay, now we're going to touch on breakout rooms. Now, first for breakout rooms, I'm going to explain from the host perspective. Then I will explain from the attendees' perspective, and then we'll put you all in breakout rooms to test it out. Now, breakout rooms is something only the host can do. And the host can create up to 50 breakout rooms. These can be set up in advance or at the meeting with a maximum of 200 participants across all the breakout rooms. And they could be pre-assigned before. Now, when we went to zoom.us, we did the login and we went through, I touched on that, uploading a CSV file. You can set the number of rooms, breakout rooms that you want. You can set whether they will be assigned automatically, whether they'll be assigned manually, or whether you want the participants to choose the rooms that they will go in. Now, this could work in a conference where you've got 4 education sessions where people could choose the rooms they want to go, just like in a real one, or for club training where you are assigning people to the rooms that they will go in. Now you click create to create the rooms. You have the option to delete and rename them too, to give them nice, pretty names. There's also a bunch of options, and those options include allowing the participants to choose the room or not, which is a relatively new setting in Zoom. It wasn't that way a couple of months ago. You can allow the participants to return to the main session or to stay locked in the rooms. You can have them go automatically, or you can manually have them go. You can assign when the rooms will close. So if you're doing an education session that are 45 minutes each, you could set that the rooms will automatically close after 45 minutes. You can assign everybody, you can lock them in so they're in there for 45 minutes. They can't get out. Then you can go have lunch and you don't even have to worry about it, because after 45 minutes, they're automatically kicked out. And you can be notified when the time is up. And then you can also set a countdown for a timer for how long before the room closes. There's advantages to setting a very short timer, because sometimes when people see that they've got a minute to leave, they will actually leave and click the wrong button. So no real best practices. It's what works, and different groups will try different things. So people can be assigned to rooms. Now, this is a really good point to talk about the importance of being able to rename, when people are able to rename themselves. And I can't really stress this enough. When the host says, rename yourself this way, like title, then name, or club, then name, please follow instructions and get the members of your club to do it. I know people may want to be creative and not follow the naming conventions, but really, if you don't follow the naming conventions, the host will be muttering at you for not doing it. Now, it sounds innocent enough, but if you've got 500 attendees when you're doing club training and 100 of them cannot rename themselves properly, the host either has to go in and manually rename or manually move them over, and it can be quite daunting. And then if you've been to training, you've heard the host or somebody come on and say, KB iPad, you won't get trained and you won't get credit if you don't rename yourself. So, and next week I'm doing a workshop on how to for beginners on how to rename themselves, because that's very important. And then in 2 weeks, I'm doing one with James Falcon on using Zoom on iPads, iPhones, and Android. So it's very important. And you could just start in your club, just have people rename themselves. Just have us all get in the practice of renaming ourselves. And because of all the training we're doing by the club officer training on November the 21st, nobody will have an excuse of why they cannot rename themselves. Anyway, that's my soapbox there. So when you've got the room set up, the host can go into a certain room, can assign themselves to a room. The host can also message everybody, can send a broadcast message to everybody. Could be whatever, you got 5 minutes left. It could be, now's your time to move to this part. And here's some very important tips about breakout rooms, and we learn from experience. So what I want to point out first is, if the host is in a breakout room, so the host sets up, assigns everybody, goes into a breakout room, the host doesn't know what's happening in the main room, and the host cannot admit anyone from a waiting room. So if you happen to be in a breakout room and you click the wrong button and you leave the whole meeting and you're trying to get back in and the host is in a breakout room, you're not getting back into the meeting. So that, because the host cannot admit anyone from the waiting room, and the host has no control over anything else in the meeting. Now, a best practice is assign a co-host or assign a host to stay in the meeting, in the main room, just to keep an eye on everything. It's also very important to assign a co-host for each breakout room. If you have somebody who's running the breakout session, who's maybe screen sharing or needs the ability to mute, unmute, and so on, it's very important that you assign the a co-host in that breakout room. So assign your, say, your moderators or your presenters or your facilitators before you make them the co-host, then move them into the breakout room. They keep the co-host capability. They still have the powers that the co-host has. So that's a very vital thing to be able to do.
Can the co-hosts move themselves into whichever breakout room they want to?
Yes, that's a newer feature. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and as I was going through all this, and we learned from experience from 6.5 months ago when we started with Zoom, that we have got some real Zoom war stories from the COVID war of how we've all struggled and dealt with issues in Zoom and so on. Now, from the attendee perspective, when the host is assigning you as an attendee, you get a message that says the host is inviting you to join breakout room, then the name of the room, and then you click to join. Now, one of the reasons we rename these rooms sometimes is, well, we like when you click to join, but maybe you've been assigned to the wrong room. Maybe there's a contest and we've got a room for judges and a room for contestants. You're a contestant and you're going into the judges room. Well, then click later. Because sometimes we might make a mistake. And it always feels like warp drive for me, or hyperdrive, when you click and you go, all of you that have been in breakout rooms. So when you click and then you're brought into the room. Now, again, I'll run through the settings for the breakout room so you're aware. You can allow participants to choose the breakout rooms. You can allow them to return to the main session. So you might be able to leave and you might not. The rooms may close after a certain period of time. And there can be a countdown that pops up to tell you how much or how little time that you have left. And then when you leave, now there is a button that comes up. You've got leave breakout room and leave meeting. Make sure you click on the leave breakout room, because if you click leave meeting, you'll end up way out of the meeting. And many people have done that. And many of us have learned the hard way. Okay, now I'm going to turn off sharing because I want to put you all in breakout rooms. So I have set up a bunch of rooms and I'm going, and I can't show this to you on the screen. So I'm setting you to, you can return to the main session. I'm trying to give it a timer of 10 seconds and we'll have these close after 3 minutes. Okay. Let's see, do I have to assign everybody? So I'm just going through and assigning a bunch of people. Now this could be too, when you're running training, an option would be to have the main host do this and not have the host be the presenter at the same time. All right, and now you're all going to go into a breakout room for about 3 minutes. So you've all been invited to join, and go ahead.
Shawn, I saw you felt lonely there, so I returned. Just no problem. I am familiar with this. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I think they'll be shutting off in a moment.
Thank you, Shawn. It was very, very useful. This especially advanced features. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, you're welcome. Hope the recording happened. Got a minute and a half remaining. I get to broadcast another one. Notice the countdown timer. Well, that's why. I've assigned myself to a room. That's why I'm on my second screen. Great, so everyone should be popping back now.
Didn't know how to answer you, Shawn, when you asked questions about, did we see this or that? I tried answering you in the chat, but I answered Shawn Gold.
Yeah, you can't in the chat. You cannot communicate with the host at this point. I think that will change relatively soon with Zoom. I think there'll be more chat capabilities and so on, but that'll come with time. Okay, the breakout rooms have closed, so everybody is back. And the last thing I'm going to show you, actually, how was that for everybody?
Very good.
Good.
Yeah,
good. A neat thing that you can do if you've got, well, you can do it at your club or do it with family. We've done it a couple of times. Just get some people together, go on Zoom, somebody start a meeting and just play, transfer host duties, make people co-host, just go through. And the best way to learn is just test it out. Because anything I say here, no matter how detailed your notes, there could be an upgrade to Zoom next week that throws it all out the window. And
I really like that idea of practicing with a bunch of people. That's something I'm going to suggest to my club. Thank you.
Yep. I did it early on in early COVID with the kids. And they learned to chunk and I learned to chunk. And yep. And there's probably more Zoom games. So play with backgrounds and so on. So the last thing I wanted to show you was just the layout that I use when I run my meetings. And I've got to go back and share my screen.
By the way, Shawn, I had a thought yesterday about why not have a backroom room where all the co-hosts can pop into and actually discuss problems that they're having.
Yep. Or multiple different channels to communicate.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how do you lay out the screen? And Gia was touching on this. I happen to have two computers that I'm using today. So in front of me are 4 screens because each computer has 2 monitors. Maybe not everybody will get into that other than Gia and me. If you can put in a second monitor, you will find it so much more convenient. And if you've got a flat screen TV or a big screen TV, they're all built now with either, and your computer will have, I might be getting technical, but either a video port that will allow you to connect your TV to your laptop. If you run your meetings in the living room, for example, you could put the speaker on the presenter on the big screen and run everything on your small screen. What I have here is a couple of ways that I have set up my screen. Now I've got one monitor that is horizontal and one that is vertical, or in other words, up and down and side to side. And that's how I lay it out. And in the example here, on the left side, I've got my chat window open. So this is, and I'm meeting host. The chat is here, so I'm able to follow the host. I've got all of the participants. And I really like having a monitor like this that's big enough where I can see all or most of the participants, especially if I'm in a role where I have to monitor to see who's muted and who isn't. Then I've got gallery view, again, so I can monitor everybody whose camera is on, at least in case somebody does something that's inappropriate and I have to be able to turn off their monitor. So if you're in a larger setting, you can assign somebody whose sole job is just to go through and make sure that people are muted or that they're not disturbing and that they're not doing anything inappropriate. Now, I don't mean somebody just getting undressed and showing off body parts deliberately. It could be that something's happening that could be a distraction. And as a courtesy to your fellow attendees, you may want to turn off somebody's camera. And then on the right, I've got what the main window is. So that's one example. Another one, this is, you asked about splitting or having on one screen. This is what I was doing as a timer for one meeting where I was the timer. I had my Zoom window open, or settings window open, so that I could change the timing lights. I had the presentation itself, so I could follow along with what the presenter was doing. I still had, I had the participants window in the chat, so I could follow everything. And as timer, I had the agenda, and I had everybody in gallery view. And in this meeting, I was doing double duty as meeting host and as timer, which can be quite taxing. And some days it feels like I'm in mission control here, trying to keep track of everything. And then finally, another similar layout that I have from a business meeting I was in. And again, I was a co-host, so I had the whole participant screen so I could follow along. I had a notepad open so I could make notes, things I wanted to keep track of. If you have assigned somebody to be to monitor the chat, that person may want to keep a Word doc or notepad or something to actually put in the questions. And so this is another screen setup that I use. It's basically, it's whatever works for you. I like to have as much as I can on the screen so that I can monitor everybody, so I can see what's going on. When I'm doing a presentation, I will have two computers. Like today, I'm speaking to you through one computer. I'm doing my presentation on a second computer, which allows me to see exactly what you're looking at. So as I move my mouse here, I can see exactly what you're seeing, which is very helpful. And that is it. So today we covered Zoom etiquette, and best practices for Zoom. We looked at the zoom.us settings and a lot of the variations there. And again, just log in, check all of your settings. You can log in, change some settings. You can create a meeting there. You can go into your Zoom app. You can start the meeting and then just test. And if you really want to see what it's like with other people, if you've got a second computer in the house or a smartphone, then have 2 or 3 devices all connected. And I do that. I will have 3 devices on. I can see myself in 3 different camera angles because I'm going through and testing things. We covered the menu bar and a lot of the settings that the host has access to, especially the security, the participants in the breakout rooms. And then we touched on the desktop setup. And that is it. So thank you for coming. I'm going to stop the recording